And now, Hour 2 of For Us All by Jeanne Sakata, directed by Analyst Erikson.
With Fred's blessing, we got to work. As lead counsel, Dale began rallying the troops.
Western Defense Commandos, listen up for assignments. Reviewing and organizing evidence. Peter and Lori, that's you.
Where did Don go?
Picking up pizza at Nikki D's.
The place with all the video games? Where I always crush you at Space Invaders?
No way.
5 pepperoni and mushroom, 5 6-packs of Bud.
Oh, yes.
What'd I miss?
Don, can you head up our public education drive?
Sure.
As well as fundraising?
No sweat.
As well as press and media?
Which I know absolutely nothing about.
Don't worry, we'll get you up to speed.
And next Oakland A's game on me.
Ooh, who are they playing?
Red Sox.
Not the Yankees? Deal.
The A's are going down this year. Dodger blue all the way. We're taking the World Series.
No way.
In your dreams.
Lori, do you have something to pass out there?
A proposal for political strategy. How attacking these court cases can help advance our redress cause. Also, ideas on getting the story of the prison camps to the public.
Because not only do we have to win this case in a court of law, we've also got to win it in the court of public opinion.
And in the court of history.
Back in D.C., Aiko was secretly feeding our document pipeline from the National Archives.
Dale, you called?
Aiko, you all alone now?
Yeah? In a phone booth off manuscripts. Why?
I need supporting documents on Ringo's report. Paragraph 9.
Got it.
And I've got a very tough ask. The letter from J. Edgar Hoover to Attorney General Biddle dated June 7th. It's semi-classified. Think you can swing it?
Leave everything to me. I got Nick Chen and Phil Nash and a half dozen others on the hunt with me now.
Of course you do. Who wants to miss out on the action? Aren't you, and I quote, the nation's foremost expert on the available records on the camps?
No kidding. Who said that?
Your husband, Jack.
Oh.
Plus everyone we talk to.
What? I told you not to mention me. I'm a government employee here. I shouldn't be slipping you documents.
That incriminate your employer?
I've got my pension to think about.
Just kidding. Relax. We never mention your name to anyone. And you don't ever have to tell us if what you're doing is illegal. We really don't want to know.
Neither do I. But I got covered, Dale. The Freedom of Information Act.
Damn, girl. Should have known you'd think of everything. Oh, gotta run.
Tell Karen and Bob happy first anniversary. And say hi to all the young people.
You bet.
Okay, Aiko. Your country needs you.
Hello, Agnes. How are you today? Oh, I just love that brooch you're wearing.
Aiko was our ace in the hole, this sweet senior Nisei lady, charming and petite. Who would ever suspect her? She was the perfect mole, the perfect ninja. Aiko funneled us document upon document demonstrating government misconduct at the highest level. As her work poured in from D.C., our team, now fortified with dozens of Bay Area lawyers, law students, and undergrads, saw something forming before our very eyes. An irrefutable history of the government's suppression of evidence before the Supreme Court. We planned to file Fred's petition in October 1982. But as the enormity of the work became clear, we pushed the date to December, and then again to January.
Last 3 items to discuss. First, money. We've almost exhausted all funds. Zero, Zip, Tap City. Don?
So far, we've spent $10,000.
And how much is left?
$500.
That's it? Where did it go?
Airfare costs, long-distance calls, DC research, office supplies, tons of bills for Xeroxing.
Noted. Second item, secrecy. Until we actually file. The stuff we've got locked up here could ruin reputations. And if someone gets wind of that and tries to destroy this evidence...
Then how do we raise money? The way to do that is to say we've got the goods on the government.
I'll form a group with a name that says just enough. The Committee to Reverse the Japanese-American Wartime Cases. Then we hit up every friend and family member to donate. That's Dennis with today's press.
Third, legal strategy. We've got to finalize.
I still say we aim straight for the top, right at the Supreme Court, where Fred lost in 44, where Justice Jackson called the ruling a loaded weapon for the future.
But there's no guarantee the court will even rule on the case. What if they dismiss it and we're left with no chance to appeal?
Yes, it's a risk, but these convictions have got to be overruled. And if we succeed, bam, we're on the national evening news, the front page of the New York Times.
But we can't just file suit there. We'd have to appeal from a recent case, and ours is 40 years old.
Guys, we're sunk. Today's Pacific citizen, Arthur Goldberg, he just threw us under the bus.
What? He's supposed to be on our side.
Arthur Goldberg, former Supreme Court Justice. It is my considered opinion that it is not necessary and indeed not procedurally possible to mount a legal attack to overrule Korematsu.
Unbelievable!
Let me see that.
There's gotta be a mistake. Goldberg's been helping us push for reparations.
The Supreme Court of the United States has never, to my knowledge, reopened a decided case after such a lengthy interval. There is an obvious and strong public interest in finality of judgment.
Are you kidding me? What if it's a terrible judgment?
Indeed, any attempt to overturn Korematsu runs the danger of legitimizing this bad decision in the virtually certain event of denial by the court.
He's trying to shut us down before we've even filed.
Based on my experience as a Supreme Court justice, a coram nobis effort would be fruitless.
Fruitless? We've been working our asses off for months for something fruitless?
This doesn't make sense. Goldberg advises our community on legal strategy.
This will reach the public today, before we've even filed Fred's case.
He's trying to publicly torpedo us.
But why? What's his motive?
Hands off, that's his motive. Don't you dare attack the Supreme Court. And we can't let this matter.
But here's why it does matter. If a former Supreme Court justice who supports redress is saying this, what does it say about our chances for a win?
So don't even try? We have to. What happens when some crazy racist wants to get rid of someone else? And Korematsu's still on the books to justify that. Mass incarcerate citizens? Sure, the court says it's legal.
Oh, you think I don't know that? But...
Guys, it's the Supreme Court, the highest legal authority in the United States of America. These cases are some of the worst decisions in the court's history. Think of what it would mean if the court overruled its own mistake.
But would they even consider it? Finality of judgment. Goldberg says it right here. All legal battles have to end.
That's the thinking we have to ignore.
And that's what we can't ignore. The stakes are too high. We've been working our asses off to tell the story of what happened to our families. We've said that's just as important as the case itself. But a flaming loss at the Supreme Court means it's all over. People are already starting to say that if Fred loses a second time...
We're not going to lose.
It might resurrect the racism of the original ruling. It might hurt the redress movement, make us legal pariahs. We're young, we're green, we're Asian, we're unknown, and we're taking on a momentous case, accusing the U.S. government of fraud at the nation's highest court. We're attempting something that's never been done in American legal history. The whole country's going to be watching us.
The whole country should be watching us.
And if we fail at the Supreme Court, we're going to fail big. And here's the thing. I am absolutely 1,000% willing to risk it. I'm willing to go for broke on this case, no matter the outcome. Because we've got to get this evidence out there. This proof that the government screwed our families big time. But if we lose at the Supreme Court, who's going to listen to us? We've only got one shot at this.
Don, you're right, buddy. Let's think this through.
All right, guys. 2 points here. 1, Goldberg's totally in the dark about the evidence we've got. But we know what we've got. And when the public knows, we're going to knock their socks off. This is an open and shut case.
Nothing's open and shut, Lori.
And 2, a Supreme Court challenge is not our only option. Guys, getting Korematsu overturned, I know that's what we've wanted from the first time Peter called us. But if we can't get it overturned, we can totally gut it. Show it's based on nothing but lies. And we can do that with our plan B.
The lower courts.
Yes.
Okay, team. We file 3 cases in the lower courts where each case originated. We might not win them all. But this way, we'd have 3 chances to win instead of 1. 3 times at bat.
And if we lose, our case or cases could go to the Ninth Circuit on a possible road back to the Supreme Court.
And this way, our cases have longer legs, which means we'll have more time to reach out to the public and more places to do it. And this is key. We know this tragedy can happen again if the public allows it to, or worse, wants it to. Now, granted, it's not as dazzling as hitting a home run at the Supreme Court.
We're not trying to be dazzling here. We're trying to get the country's eyes on this case.
And we also want to win. So I, for one, say, let's give ourselves the widest playing field.
Are we all agreed?
Yeah.
Okay, which case goes first? Who's got stats on judges?
Portland's got 3, Seattle 12, and San Francisco 20, with the highest number of liberals.
Hands down, it's San Francisco.
Wait, there's no guarantee we'll get a liberal judge here.
But we'll have the best odds, and we'll stagger the filings. If we get a good judge here, we'll wait a month to file the next case. Use that judge to put the pressure on the other 2 in Portland and Seattle. Agreed?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Batter up, Fred.
Lori?
Karen, what are you doing here so late?
Just stopping by to wish you luck. Big day tomorrow.
For us all. We're pulling one last all-nighter to polish everything up. What have you got there?
Mom thought you could use a snack.
A snack? This is a feast! Oh, yakitori, potato salad, Jell-O, sesame spinach.
And a big old tin of rice crackers from Yamashita's. Ta-da! Like our grandmothers used to bring us.
Oh, my bachan used to bring mine over Christmas morning. Oh, I love this kind of senbei with the nori wrapped around.
Mine too. I bet it's one of the things they miss most in the prison camps. Senbei and nori.
I gotta have nori.
Yeah.
My cousin once sat on a white Santa Claus's lap, and he said, "Would you like a candy cane, little girl?" She said, "Can I have a can of nori instead?" He said, "Nori? What the heck is that?" She looked at him like he was an idiot. She said, "It's dried seaweed." You should have seen the horrified look on his face.
Oh my god, that's rich.
How's Fred?
Well, all this excitement is a little tough. His ulcers, he just got out of the hospital for treatments. But he appreciates all the sacrifices you're all making on his behalf.
He's sacrificed so much more. All these years. All of you have.
Thanks. And Lori?
Yes?
Mom and I, we're overjoyed that this team has so many women. Mom told me in her time she didn't know any women that went to law school. Is it ever hard for you to be taken seriously?
Oh, hell yeah. Just last week in court. God, I heard it again. Miss, are you the interpreter? Where is the attorney? I'm the attorney, I said. And I get that double take. So I tell myself, the legal profession holds the keys to justice. And getting those keys in our hands, it's going to be worth it all.
No matter how many years it takes?
We're gonna prove the doubters wrong, Karen. They're not gonna know what hit them.
So you and the rest of the team, you all feel this is worth it? Dad worries that if he loses again...
I know if we don't do this, we'll regret it for the rest of our lives. Win or lose, we're going to tell Fred's story.
Good luck, Lori.
Good luck, Karen.
On the morning of January 31st, Dale, Don, Lori, and I drove over the Bay Bridge from Oakland to file Fred's petition, along with a thick stack of exhibits. All of us were on edge. The kind of judge we'd draw this morning could determine the kind of justice we'd get.
Lori, you okay back there?
The stack of papers is 3 feet high. I can hardly see over them.
Careful, they're all in order.
Dale, look out!
Oh, man. Will you look at that line at the toll plaza? What the hell is going on? This always happens to me. I get in the shortest line.
And it ends up taking the longest. Happens to me every time. I've always been unlucky.
You want to hear unlucky? I've never even won a sack of rice at the Oakland Methodist raffle.
And man, that really sucks. Because we're at the mercy of luck today in the assignment of our judge. So, should 3 guys who have always been unlucky be the ones to file such a monumental...
Lori!
Huh?
Lori, you do the filing.
Me?
Of the 4 of us, you're the luckiest.
You guys can't be serious.
Oh, we are. The fate of our case is resting on you.
Lori, don't screw this up. Berinsky's a total washout. If she draws Berinsky, we're toast.
Sutton. Forget Sutton. We're sunk if she gets Sutton.
Girl, you can do this.
Knock it out of the park.
You got
Go
this.
for it!
Hello, ma'am. I'm Lorraine Bannai. I'm here to file a petition against the United States government.
Okay. This filing is highly unusual, to say the least. A petition for writ of error coram nobis? I've never actually seen one of these before. It's quite obscure, very rarely used.
Yes.
The name of the judge who convicted Mr. Korematsu is Judge Adolphus St. Shore, but he's been dead for 35 years?
Yes.
And Mr. Korematsu's Supreme Court case has been closed for 40 years?
Yes.
You're sure you want to do this?
Absolutely.
Okay. Don't say I didn't warn you. We gotta assign your judge now, so let's give her a whirl. You got Judge Patel.
Judge Patel?
Judge Marilyn Patel.
Are you sure?
Says right here.
Could you double check that, please?
It's correct. Patel. You want me to print the ticket out for you?
Nope. That won't be necessary, thank you.
Sure. Good luck with that coram nobis case. Unfortunately, I think you're going to need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Oh my God! We got Judge Patel!
Way to go, Lori!
Yes! Told you you'd be good luck.
Oh my God!
She's one of the best judges you could have drawn. She's worked for the National Organization for Women.
She was appointed by Jimmy Carter.
She's a supporter of civil liberties. Her husband's East Indian. She's got experience with ethnic minorities.
Judge Marilyn Patel, we hoped, would understand the injustice brought upon Fred and the rest of the Japanese-American community during World War II. On the day we filed, Don called a press conference to announce the reopening of Fred's historic case.
Low expectations, okay, guys? Because I don't know if any of the press is even going to show up.
What the hell? You said you had the networks on the hook.
Yeah, I did. I played them against each other. Told ABC and NBC that CBS was following the story. Made them think it meant that CBS was actually coming, and it worked. CBS will be there? Okay, we'll be there too. But in my follow-up, man, I lost them. This Japanese-American prison thing, you're saying that happened here? You sure this isn't about Japanese prisoners of war?
Everyone ready? Okay, here we go.
You guys!
Holy cow, look at him!
New York Times, LA Times, Baltimore Sun, San Francisco Examiner.
And all the networks. Yes!
Dale, you're on. And Dale,
Yeah?
don't screw this up.
Welcome, everyone. Would everyone please have a seat? Today we are filing these petitions for writ of error coram nobis to reopen cases which upheld the convictions of Minoru Yasui, Gordon Hirabayashi, and Fred Korematsu, and validated the forced removal and curfew orders which led to the imprisonment of 115,000 Japanese Americans during World War II. The basis of our petitions is recently discovered evidence that indicates that high government officials suppressed, altered, and destroyed evidence in order to influence the outcomes of these cases at trial and on appeal, including appeals to the United States Supreme Court. Don?
We have here a unique opportunity to correct a wrong, where there was a gross violation of the civil liberties of Japanese Americans and an enormous toll of human suffering. What we are asking here is not just for sympathy. We are asking for something very simple, and that is the justice that was denied these men 40 years ago. And now, let's hear from Fred Korematsu.
I was born here in Oakland, here in the Bay Area. And I went to school here and learned all about the Constitution. I'm just like every other American. I wanted to stay here. And when this evacuation came, I felt I was not a criminal or enemy alien, which I was classified as. And at the time of the evacuation, I stayed. I probably would assume that you, as American citizens, had they told you to get out, you'd feel the same way.
Are there any questions? Yes.
You're seeking to reopen cases decided by the Supreme Court in the 1940s?
We are.
And you are doing that through an obscure legal process called what?
Coram nobis, a very rarely used proceeding that can be used to attack a criminal conviction.
Are you all serious?
Dead serious.
Today, news of the scandal of the World War II government cover-up in the Supreme Court cases of 3 American citizens, Fred Korematsu, Minoru Yasui, and Gordon Ishibashi. There is a shocking claim that then Solicitor General Charles Fahey had lied to the Supreme Court during these Americans' trials about his claim that military necessity drove its decision to mass incarcerate over 100,000 people of Japanese ancestry. According to the litigators, newly surfaced evidence will show the motives for this decision were purely racist in nature. I'm sitting here with World War II Justice Department lawyer Edward Ennis. Mr. Ennis, what do you have to say about the trial which opened today in San Francisco?
Well, I am still adamant in my view that the wartime incarceration and evacuation of Japanese Americans was 100% wrong. However, the case faces serious hurdles.
Do you believe the 3 men in question have a chance of getting the court's decisions overturned?
Well, they must prove that manifest injustice took place. That means that the government knowingly lied to the Supreme Court 40 years ago, not just that military reports were factually incorrect.
In the 1940s, Mr. Ennis, you authored a memo stating that lies were being told to the Supreme Court. Do you stand by that claim?
I do.
And yet, Mr. Ennis, are you aware that Lyle Denniston of the Baltimore Sun, who has reported on the Supreme Court since 1958, said to date that this campaign is a legal long shot? What is your response?
Well, I wish with all my heart I did not have to agree with that. But I do. For Mr. Korematsu, this will be an uphill battle.
Fred was not well, and after the presser, we took him straight home. Right after Christmas, he had gone to the hospital with bleeding ulcers. On New Year's Day, he had surgery to remove 1/3 of his stomach. Now he rested at home, watching the TV coverage.
For Mr. Korematsu, this will be an uphill battle.
An uphill battle? That's what the press is saying? Then I'm going to help you.
What's that, Fred?
When the team goes out to raise money again, this time, I'm going to help you.
Fred, no, you can't possibly...
You young people are putting your careers on the line for me. It's the least I can do. Besides, I have more time now. They let me go at work.
What? How did they...
The press coverage. They've been seeing it. And they've been asking me, why are you doing this, Fred? Now, look, I haven't mentioned it because I didn't want you to worry. I can freelance now while I'm helping the team.
But we promised you wouldn't have to.
So, I guess you were lying. Where's my first stop?
Fred started small and local in the Bay Area, churches and community groups. Then on to Sacramento and south to Los Angeles. Soon he was traveling across the country, our emissary to the American public. And as we watched him, shaking hands, working the crowds, being interviewed on TV's 60 Minutes, we knew we had created a monster. The government responded to our petition in March, making it clear they'd delay the trial proceedings as long as possible. Victor Stone, counsel for the U.S. Justice Department, insisted over and over that he needed more time to digest our evidence, to consult with the government, to wait for the CWRIC's recommendations, and to deal with the probability our charges might upset some people.
I'm here today with John J. McCloy, Assistant Secretary of War during World War II. Mr. McCloy, let me first congratulate you. Last month, Harper's Magazine called you the most influential private citizen in America.
Well, thank you, Sean. Well, not to be immodest, but since the war, I've also advised 9 presidents, chaired the board of Chase Manhattan Bank.
How do you feel about the issue of Japanese-American redress and the allegations of government misconduct in the Korematsu case?
I'm warning every one of those leaders today that if we bow to this Japanese-American lobby pressing for redress, we will perpetuate injustice. The consensus of prudent, responsible officials at the time, without rebuttal from any quarter, was that an attack was possible, accompanied with sabotage by the ethnic Japanese.
But the Korematsu team claims they have evidence from the responsible intelligence agencies that does rebut the witness claims of Japanese-American espionage and sabotage.
The Japanese threat was heavily concentrated along the West Coast defense installations. It simply was not feasible to carry out immediate personal evaluation of 120,000 Japanese Americans and resident aliens.
Are you suggesting, Mr. McCloy, that DeWitt ordered this mass incarceration based on a lack of time? The Korematsu team says there is overwhelming evidence to the contrary.
I am saying, young man, that I am outraged that these people think they can attack the integrity of senior wartime government officials. To associate ignorant prejudice with such honorable men is an affront to their memory and the total misconception of the facts.
Fred, we just got word. It's all over the press. The CWRIC announced its recommendations. They're saying Congress should issue a national apology for the camps.
That's good. That's very good.
And approve redress payments. $20,000 for every survivor.
Well, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear the commission telling Congress to do the right thing.
But they're also saying that...
Yes?
That the president should pardon those who violated military orders.
A pardon?
And Fred, this recommendation was made over our objections, but...
A pardon? So, that would mean that I committed a crime and was being forgiven for it?
Yes, that's correct.
And if I accepted this pardon, could I still pursue this case?
No. We'd have to drop it.
Then, no. It's not acceptable.
Fred, if you want to think it over...
That won't be necessary.
We just want you to be sure.
I'm sure. I'm very sure. If anything, we should be pardoning the government.
Mr. Minami, Victor Stone, counsel for the defense.
Let me guess. You want more time.
I am in an unbelievable position. Given the new recommendation for a presidential pardon that has just come from the CWRIC, the government would like a further extension of time to consider our options.
Mr. Stone, our 3 petitioners want a judicial vacation of their convictions and a hearing on our allegations as soon as possible.
Well, I wish to propose something you may want to consider. How about a pardon for innocence?
A pardon for innocence? What the hell is that?
A pardon which would acknowledge that the person pardoned is actually innocent of the charges.
If the person pardoned is innocent of the charges, why would he need to be pardoned?
Well, you see...
We reject the pardon for innocence, Mr. Stone. You can't play this game forever.
On October 4th, 1983, Stone filed the government's response.
Your Honor, in 1942, the petitioner was one of the few standard bearers who chose to challenge the propriety of Executive Order 9066. Now, the mass removal of Japanese Americans from the West Coast was part of an unfortunate episode in our nation's history. But surely this tragedy has now been adequately acknowledged in President Gerald Ford's proclamation of February 19, 1976, which not only formally terminated Executive Order 9066, but also issued a sincere apology. President Ford wrote, "We now know what we should have known then. Not only was the evacuation wrong, but Japanese Americans were and are loyal Americans. On the battlefield and at home, the names of Japanese Americans have been and continue to be written in history for the sacrifices and contributions they have made to the nation." Now, given that the United States government has acknowledged that the wartime treatment of Japanese Americans was wrong, and because we believe that it is time to put behind us the controversy which led to this tragedy, we conclude it is appropriate to vacate this conviction. It is not our intent to keep harassing Mr. Korematsu. If what he wants is getting his conviction vacated, that is what he can have. However, it is not necessary for the court to address the claims of government fraud. Therefore, I move to dismiss not only the original 1942 indictment filed against Mr. Korematsu, but also his coram nobis petition and its allegations of governmental misconduct.
Order! Order!
We are here outside the courthouse, awaiting Fred Korematsu's response as he weighs the government's proposal. Mark, as political analyst for the Times, what are your thoughts?
Liz, in these past few weeks, Mr. Korematsu has become a hero to many Americans. He's brought attention to the injustice of World War II and the suffering of his fellow citizens. And for that, we should all be grateful.
Should he accept the government's offer, Mark?
Yes, I think so. The CWRIC has said it all. No completely satisfactory answer can be reached about these emotion-laden issues. And so, for the sake of unity and healing, for the good of the country, I hope Mr. Korematsu can put this tragedy behind him now and move on with his life.
Here's where we are, Fred. On the one hand, we're on the brink of achieving what you've sought for 40 years. The clearing of your name. In that respect,
I would win.
Yes. However, in offering to vacate your conviction, the government would not be admitting its lies in arguing at the Supreme Court that the forced removal of our families was due to military necessity.
But all the work the team has done.
Fred, this moment isn't about us. It's about you. You've lived 40 years with this ruling and all its consequences, and we're here to support you in whatever you wish to do. But we need your decision now.
Okay. Here it is. It's not enough. Vacating my conviction. It's not enough. This fight isn't just for me. Let's hold the government accountable.
November 10th, 1983. At last, Fred's day in court arrived. Across the country, numerous civic, legal, and religious organizations had filed amicus briefs in support of Fred, all aware his case could have effects far beyond the reversal of his own conviction. Over 500 spectators packed the chamber, among them elderly Japanese Americans who had weathered years of imprisonment behind barbed wire, crying out now to campmates they had not seen for 40 years. As television and film crews flooded the hallway, Fred, his family, and our legal team entered the courtroom, Fred's wife, Catherine, stopping just long enough to smooth his hair. Finally, Judge Patel took the bench.
Mr. Stone, first things first. I'm sorry to say I do not consider the government's motion to vacate the conviction and dismiss the petition as a proper vehicle for judicial action.
That is unfortunate, Your Honor.
It is unfortunate, Mr. Stone, that you have wasted months of the people's time. Now, Mr. Minami, your oral argument?
Your Honor, we are here today to seek a measure of the justice denied to Fred Korematsu and the Japanese-American community 40 years ago. The allegations we put forth are perhaps unique in legal history, that high government officials suppressed, altered, and destroyed information and evidence in order to influence the outcome of a Supreme Court case. No doubt these officials assumed their shocking betrayal of our democratic process would remain a secret throughout the course of history. But fortunately, that is not the case, because that evidence has been recovered and presented to the court, a few key pieces of which we highlight today. Your Honor, I hold before you a memo from Edward Ennis, an attorney with the United States Justice Department in 1943. In this memo to Solicitor General Charles Fahey, Ennis expresses his alarm and distress that the United States government is presenting lies to the court in a War Department document written by General John DeWitt, titled The Final Report. What are DeWitt's lies? First, that Japanese Americans are committing acts of espionage and sabotage and are, as a race, prone to disloyalty. Second, that their mass incarceration is therefore key to national security. And third, that because the Army lacks time for individual trials of suspects, that incarceration must happen immediately as a military necessity. Now, how do we know these statements are false? Because of the vast body of evidence we've already submitted to the court. Numerous statements and reports from all three government intelligence agencies directly refuting DeWitt's claims of Japanese-American disloyalty, and all of which were deliberately suppressed at Mr. Korematsu's Supreme Court trial. In addition, let us turn our attention to another key piece of evidence. Edward Ennis knew that DeWitt's claims of military necessity for a rushed policy of mass incarceration were false, because the report in which DeWitt made these claims was actually an altered version of his original report, which I present to you now. In this original, DeWitt makes two key declarations. One, that there is, in fact, sufficient time for individual trials of suspects. And two, that it is of no matter, because it is impossible to determine the loyalty of Japanese Americans no matter how much time is available. Your Honor, we've submitted to you War Department correspondence confirming this conspiracy to destroy the original report and replace it with a doctored version. And in addition, we share with you now DeWitt's exact words from a phone call made in 1943 to Provost Marshal General Allen Gullion. I don't see how they can determine the loyalty of a Jap by investigation. There isn't such a thing as a loyal Japanese. Your Honor, Fred Korematsu lived 40 years with a criminal conviction infected with error, while carrying the burden of losing the case which sanctioned the mass imprisonment of his people. He fought virtually alone when his community was either too young, too tired, too old, or too frightened to fight alongside him. He fought against a monumental tragedy, the mass banishment of a single racial minority group, in which the total in lost property, lost opportunities, broken families, and human suffering was staggering. Today, the government is arguing that we should put the controversy behind us, that we should let old wounds heal. But whose wounds need healing? The Japanese Americans who have lived with the stigma of this decision for 40 years? For those Japanese American internees, for Fred Korematsu, and for this court. This is the last opportunity to finally achieve the justice denied 40 years ago. Thank you, Your Honor. And now I request that Fred Korematsu be allowed to address the court.
A very unusual request. But today, I'll allow it. Mr. Korematsu.
Your Honor, I still remember 40 years ago when I was handcuffed and arrested as a criminal here in San Francisco. And speaking today for all those who've endured the concentration camps, I ask for vindication, not just for myself, but for those who suffered with me. As long as my record stands in federal court, any American citizen can be held in prison or concentration camps without a trial or hearing. I would like to see the government admit that they were wrong and do something about it, so this will never happen again to any American citizen of any race, creed, or color.
Thank you, Mr. Korematsu. Mr. Stone, your response.
Acknowledgement of this tragedy as a national mistake justifies vacating the conviction and dismissing this petition.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. I'd like to acknowledge all of you who took the time to attend today. When I was informed how many of you would likely be here, I changed the location of this trial to this courtroom with 500 seats. And still, we've had to bring in extra chairs here in the aisles. You came for personal reasons, and you deserve a response from this court, not months from now, but today. Therefore, I will make my ruling from the bench. I have carefully considered, Mr. Minami, the documents you have presented, as well as the report of the Commission on Wartime Relocation, as grounds for my decision today, which is that the government's petition response is tantamount to a confession of error, and that a coram nobis petition is, indeed, the appropriate vehicle for the court to correct fundamental errors in its record. To all of you here today, I must remind you of the limited scope of my authority as a district judge. Regrettably, I cannot reverse the Supreme Court opinion of 1944, nor can I correct any errors of law that justices may have made. Thus, Korematsu remains on the pages of our legal and political history. As historical precedent, it stands as a constant caution that in times of war or declared military necessity, our institutions must be vigilant in protecting constitutional guarantees. That the shield of military necessity must not be used to protect governmental actions from close scrutiny and accountability. That in times of international hostility, our institutions, legislative, executive, and judicial, must protect all citizens from the fears and prejudices that are so easily aroused. And so, today, Mr. Korematsu's petition for a writ of coram nobis is granted.
The abrupt end of the hearing left us all in complete silence. And then a lone voice rang out across the courtroom.
Fred, you won!
What just happened?
You won, Fred. You won!
I did?
Yes!
Oh, that's good. That's really good.
Fred, you did it. Your victory is for us all, Fred.
Thank you for your help, Aiko.
No, it was the young people here. It was the young people.
Aiko, that's not true.
Peter, we did it.
We sure did, Aiko. We were a good team.
We were a brilliant team. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Aiko?
Too late. We lost her.
Oh, I can't keep up with her. Never could.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
What's with Fred?
He doesn't get that he won yet. Don't think he can grasp it.
I guess after 40 years. Nice work, Dale.
Nice work, Don and Lori. Not bad for 2 kids from Gardena and 1 homie from Oakland.
Not bad at all. Hey, Don, your folks?
They're right over there, being interviewed.
Boasting how proud they are of their lawyer son?
Nah, they're talking about the evidence. It's all they ever talk about, ever since I showed it all to them. After all those years of silence, the floodgates opened up and...
I'll take it from here. Just one last question, Dale.
Shoot.
What's our next pro bono case?
Mr. Korematsu! Mr. Korematsu, over here! Mr. Korematsu, my sincere congratulations on your victory. But why did you wait 40 years to seek your vindication?
I had to do some real deep thinking in order to reopen this case again. I am very happy I did, because this is important, not only for Japanese Americans, but for all Americans.
Do you feel differently now than you felt in 1942?
I don't feel so alone. I just wish my mother and father could have known that I won. Thanks to a very special team with many young sansei. Who else would have taken on this case but a bunch of crazy young people?
And on that happy note, back to you in the studio.
On the day Fred won, I was flooded with emotion. I wasn't sure I could even speak to the press or anybody else. I felt overjoyed. I stood back looking at this audience, almost all Japanese American, seeing how much this affected them. And more than ever before in my life, I felt I'd been included in a group that was not my own. People I might not otherwise have ever met or gotten to know. They'd invited me in and included me. This was a once-in-a-lifetime case. There would never be another one like it. And as we all said goodbye and returned to our lives, we knew we'd never forget this historic battle we'd been privileged to be a part of. But Fred's case didn't end there. At least not in the consciousness of many across the country who for years to come asked to hear about 3 Americans who stood up for their constitutional rights in a hostile and dangerous time.
Min Yasui's case was heard by Judge Bologna in 1984 in Portland. The judge vacated Min's conviction, but refused his coram nobis petition, declaring, "I do not wish to engage in making findings on an event 40 years post facto that I feel have no legal consequences."
Peggy Nagai and the Portland team appealed the ruling, but 2 years later, Min died in November 1986 before a decision on his appeal was reached.
Gordon Hirabayashi's case was heard by Judge Voorhees in May 1984. Catherine Bannai led Gordon's team, and later, Rod Kawakami. Judge Voorhees granted the writ of coram nobis for the exclusion charge. A federal appellate court, led by Judge Mary Schroeder, granted it for the curfew charge, and Gordon cleared his name.
The 3 men joined us in telling their stories across the country, becoming civil rights advocates for those whose constitutional rights were being violated, as theirs had been.
In 1998, Fred received a Presidential Medal of Freedom from President Clinton, and in later years, posthumously, Gordon and Min received the same honors from President Obama. Fred continued his advocacy till he passed away in 2005, honored and commemorated across the country.
But the case that bore his name continued to be debated. Though we had thoroughly exposed the fraudulent basis of Fred's conviction, it remained on the Supreme Court books for two dangerous propositions.
1. The government can uproot, banish, and imprison an entire ethnic group for indefinite confinement without due process.
And 2. That the Supreme Court can cede complete deference to the president even when constitutional rights are at stake.
In 2016, presidential frontrunner Donald Trump told Time magazine he didn't know if he would have opposed the World War II imprisonment of Japanese Americans, stating, "War is tough."
In January 2017, with Trump in the White House, rumors swirled of a government registry of immigrants from Muslim-majority countries, while a super PAC chair cited the idea as precedent. We did it during World War II with the Japanese.
On June 26, 2019, the Supreme Court upheld Trump's ban on travel from several predominantly Muslim countries while simultaneously repudiating its 1944 Korematsu ruling.
Karen Korematsu fired back in response. On the day the court finally claims to overrule Korematsu, they vilified another racial group in the very same ruling, replacing one injustice with another.
Soon after, the Trump administration announced its plan to use Fort Sill, Oklahoma, the site of a World War II Japanese-American prison camp, to detain over 1,400 migrant children. Japanese-American camp survivors marched and chanted in protest,
"Stop repeating history!"
In pivotal times like ours, who can change the course of history?
Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And battling under that arc, a few, like King, are extraordinary visionaries who glimpse the mountaintop."
But many are like Fred, a most unlikely hero, who shunned the limelight until a tiny crack of light that broke his world in two. Millions of ordinary people.
A husband, a father,
a devoted daughter,
a housewife, a church secretary,
a civil rights attorney with a rundown Xerox machine,
a 25-year-old attorney, 1 year out of law school,
a draft resistor who stumbled by accident on an obscure legal procedure,
a community volunteer with a sawhorse and doorboard desk.
Ordinary people fighting to do ordinary things.
Go to school.
Go to work.
Stay in our homes.
Vote.
Marry whom we love.
Raise children.
Worship at church.
Ride a bus on any seat.
Be protected by law enforcement.
Be cared for when we're sick.
Ordinary people with extraordinary challenges before us.
Will we rise to meet them?
Will we write a new history?
It's up to each of us.
And it is for us all.
This is For Us All by Jeanne Sakata, directed by Analyst Erikson. For Us All is sponsored by the California Civil Liberties Public Education Program, a state-funded grant project of the California State Library. Starring Edward Asner, Brooke Ishibashi, Tess Lina, Mike McShane, Derek Mio, Joy Osmanski, Jeanne Sakata, Andre Solluzzo, Josh Stamberg, Greg Watanabe, and Paul Yen. Producer, Analyst Erikson. Recording engineer, editor, and sound designer, Neil Woganson. Senior radio producer, Ron Lipkin. Foley artist, Jeff Gardner. Prepared for audio by Mark Holden and mixed by Charles Carroll for the Invisible Studios, West Hollywood. You'll find For Us All and hundreds of other titles on our website, latw.org. I'm Susan Loewenberg, producing director of LA Theatre Works.